Hello my fellow nerds and welcome to the Baldur's Gate video series where I take a look at each and every one of the class spell lists and discuss which spells I think are worth considering and those I would personally pick at each and every character level. Today we are looking at the Druid spell list. Now with that out of the way, let's get nerdy. In D&D and Baldur's Gate 3, the Druid is a prepared caster, which means that the Druid has all of the spells available to them within their spell list, and can have a number of them prepared, normally based on the Druid level plus your Wisdom spell modifier, and that these spells can be prepared and swapped out outside of combat. Something else worth noting is that the Circle of the Land and Circle of the Spores Druid subclasses also get access to additional spells that are always prepared, and I will go through these at each level when these spells for those subclasses become available. At level 1, Druids can pick 2 different cantrips that they can cast at will, and they have 6 different options to choose from. And it's most likely that the 4 best ones are Guidance, Resistance, Shillelagh and Thornwhip. Now it's pretty well known at this point in time that Guidance is completely OP, and if you haven't picked this up on your Cleric as of yet, then it's probably the optimal choice to make. However, I do feel that Guidance is way too easy to just spam in each and every conversation. So I am going to go with the more thematic Druid cantrips for my Druid, and that's going to be Shillelagh and Thornwhip, which provides me with options at both close range and at distance without expending a spell slot. The other added benefit of Thornwhip, of course, is that you can pull enemies towards you, pulling them into area of effect spells that we will pick up later, as well as pulling enemies off of heights, inflicting fall damage in the process. And at level 1, of course, Druids have access to the entire suite of level 1 spells, and there are 14 different ones here. Because my Druid has a Wisdom score of 17, and therefore an ability score modifier of +3, I can choose 4 different spells to prepare from the spell list, which is based on my Druid level, which is level 1, and +3 from my ability score modifier. Nonetheless, my favorite level 1 spells for the Druid are Ice Knife, Entangle, Fog Cloud, Speak with Animals, Healing Word and Fairy Fire. And it's likely that I will be swapping between these 6 spells depending on whatever the situation calls for. But the one that I will most certainly always have prepared is Speak with Animals. At level 2, all Druids gain an additional level 1 spell slot. Additionally, the Circle of the Land Druid can also pick up another cantrip of their choice based on the original Druid options, whereas the Circle of the Spores Druid automatically gets access to the Bone Chill cantrip. For my Druid here, I'm going to be picking up Guidance, being one of the best cantrips in the game, and I was not planning to have Shadowheart within my party in my Druid playthrough. We can also prepare another level 1 spell, and this is where I'm going to grab Ice Knife, giving my Druid another range damage option which can be cast while concentrating on a different spell. At Druid level 3, you gain an additional level 1 spell slot, and 2 level 2 spell slots are also unlocked along with all of the level 2 spells. The Circle of the Land Druid also gets access to 2 different spells that are always prepared, which is dependent on a biome chosen from 8 different options representing the area that your Druid is familiar with. These land types are Arctic, Coast, Desert, Forest, Grassland, Mountain, Swamp, and Underdark. Now I won't be going through each and every spell based on your selection of land type, but feel free to pause the video here if you want to go through these in detail. On the other hand, if you went the Circle of the Spores Druid route, you also get access to 2 different spells as part of your circle spells, being Blindness and Detect Thoughts. Notwithstanding this, for my Circle of the Land Druid, I selected the Grassland land type, which gives me access to Invisibility and Pass Without a Trace, 2 spells that I feel are invaluable for any character in BG3. As mentioned before, we also get access to level 2 spells, and probably the most notable ones here are Flaming Sphere, Hold Person, Moonbeam, Enhanceability, Spike Growth and Heat Metal. And because I like to lean into the role-playing elements, making my Druid as druidic as possible, I'm always going to side on the most nature type of spells, sometimes at the detriment of making the most optimal choices. And in this case I'm gonna go with Moonbeam and Spike Growth, both of which are fantastic spells and also have a nature type flavor to them. Let's skip to Druid level 5 as there is not a whole lot that changes in spell selection between those levels. The Circle of the Land Druid once again needs to choose a land type and gets access to 2 different spells that are always prepared associated with that biome. In my opinion, any of these options that gives you access to haste is worth consideration. And that's why I am choosing the Grassland type, which also comes with the Daylight spell. Character level 5 also brings us access to level 3 spells, with a fairly limited selection of 6 spells to choose from, and only really 2 in my opinion that are quite notable, being Call Lightning and Sleet Storm. For my prepared spells at level 5, I am going to be doing a little bit of rearrangement. With the additional slot gained at level 5, I'll be picking up Thunder Wave, providing me a get out of jail free card if I'm ever mopped by melee opponents, as casting this and on a failed save pushes back all opponents within melee range. Additionally, I'll be dropping off Ice Knife here as I just have way too many level 1 spells at this point in time, and with the prepared slots I have available, I'll rather be picking up both of the level 3 spells that I mentioned earlier in Sleet Storm and Call Lightning. Of course, it's also important to mention that if you went the Circles of the Spores Druid route, you also get access to Animate Dead and Gaseous Form as your circle spells. Level 6 of Druid's going to be fairly straightforward, and I'm just going to be picking up a utility based spell for out of combat social encounters, that being Enhance Ability. At level 7, once again we can select one of the biomes or land types and get 2 associated spells that are always prepared. And this time I'm going to go with the Underdark option, which gives me access to Greater Invisibility as well as Dominate Beast, which the latter I feel is a very Druid type spell. The Circle of the Spores Druid at level 7 also gets access to a further 2 circle spells, being Blight and Confusion. But of course, level 7 also gives us access to level 4 spells. And again, there are a number of really cool ones here. My personal favorites are Conjure Woodland Being, Ice Storm, Grasping Vine and Wall of Fire. And with my additional spell slot gained at level 7, I'll be picking up Conjure Woodland Being. Again, Conjure Woodland Being a very thematic nature type spell, and with the addition of having another body on the board with a selection of minor spells to choose from, at the resource cost of a level 4th spell slot for the entire adventuring day, I would say is a pretty damn good bargain. At level 8 of Druid, you're going to be gaining another prepared spell slot, and for my Druid I decided to go a little bit out of left field and select actually a spell that's not within one of the 4 that I mentioned earlier as the best, and that's going to be the support spell Freedom of Movement. Being slightly situational in nature, however I feel that it does fit the support role that the Druid plays. On to level 9, and the Circle of the Land Druid again gets to choose one of the land types and gets access to 2 prepared spells associated with that biome. Again I selected the Grassland land type, which gives me access to Greater Restoration and also the nature themed Insect Plague spell. It's also worth noting that if you went the Circle of the Spores Druid route, you would get access to Contagion and Cloudkill as your circle spells. At level 9 we also get our first level 5 spell slot as well as access to level 5 spells. And again, there are a number of really good choices here. Actually, most of the spells available at 9th level are really good, so I'll just run through all of them real quickly, being the aforementioned Insect Plague and Contagion, as well as other options like Conjure Elemental, Wall of Stone, Mass Cure Wounds, Greater Restoration and Planar Binding. Now because I picked up an ability score increase and bumped up my wisdom to 20, I have 2 additional spell preparation slots, with which I'm going to go back a level and pick up Wall of Fire, the 4th level spell, as well as the 5th level spell Planar Binding, which on a failed save forces an enemy Celestial, Elemental, Fey or Fiend to fight by your side for 10 turns. Level 10 Druids can pick up another cantrip, and I would say pick up whatever is to your liking. For the additional preparation slot gained at this level, I'm going to go back down and include an old favorite from first level, being Ice Knife. On to level 11, and this brings us our one and only level 6 spell slot, and of course the availability of level 6 spells. My favorites from the 5 to choose from would be Sunbeam, Hero's Feast and Wall of Thorns. And being the indecisive man that I am, I'm going to once again drop off Ice Knife and instead pick up Hero's Feast. With the main benefit of Hero's Feast being giving all the party members around me advantage on wisdom saving throws, a little bit of a bump to their HP, and also immunity against poison, disease and being frightened. I'm also taking this opportunity to grab Grasping Vine, which I didn't pick up earlier, but it's also a very nature-themed spell, which I think is not only a great thematic pick, but also exclusive to the Druid class. Last but not least, at level 12, the level cap in BG3, we can pick up another prepared spell, and I'm going to round my character out by picking up Heal. Thanks so much for watching. Please leave a like on your way out and maybe comment. Let me know what are your favorite Druid spells. If you've seen a couple of these by now, please subscribe to the channel, as we are so close to hitting that 1000 subscriber milestone. And I truly hope to see you again soon.